Hello and welcome to the Mum's Guide to Money. This is tip number 13 in our series of 30 days of 30 tips. So covering a range of topics, but today's topic is, do I have to repay maternity pay if I don't go back to work? So you're in the right place. If you're planning a baby, you may be a bit confused about what the rules are with regards to maternity pay, maternity leave, how to afford things. All the tips I cover are absolutely relevant for you. So keep coming back and watching all my videos because most of the stuff is relevant, even if you're not expecting yet. You might already be expecting a baby. If you're completely confused about what you're actually entitled to, how to save money on things for the nursery, should you go back to work, what childcare options do you have, all things that I cover on the videos that I do. You might already be on maternity, so it's all a bit of a shock. You know you're going to run out of money soon, just not quite sure when. What are you going to do when you do run out of money? And that maternity pay drops off a cliff. So all these tips are relevant for you. Never too late to make a plan. So what we're going to cover today. So the question today is, do I have to repay maternity pay if I don't return to work? So I'm Charlene Smith. I'm the author of The Mum's Guide to Money. So it started out life as a blog last summer and then has morphed into a book this year. And it's all about how to financially plan and prepare for maternity leave. Okay, so do I have to repay maternity pay if I don't return to work? So before we kick off, let's have a bit of a recap. So statutory maternity pay, so sometimes called SMP. So it's the minimum amount of maternity pay you have to receive. So your employer has to pay that as a minimum. It's set by the government and they actually get to claim most or all of it back depending on their size. So it's all controlled, and even if they say we don't pay maternity pay, providing you qualify, they have to, and it doesn't cost them anything because they claim it all back. On the other hand, we've got contractual maternity pay, so it's very different, and it's often sort of wrapped up in your sort of benefits package, and it has to be over and above what statutory maternity pay is. So, for example, in an ex-local authority organisation, they might pay 26 weeks of half pay, maybe 10 weeks of full pay, just as an example. Everyone's different. But as you can see, it's significantly higher than what statutory maternity pay is. So if you're entitled to contractual maternity pay, then you really need to check your HR policies or your employment contract terms and conditions to understand the rules around repayment. So that should all be spelt out for you. If you don't go back to work, sort of where do you stand? So what happens if I don't return to work? So you might be sort of not decided yet. But once you start to investigate childcare, you might be wondering why I bother going to work, given how much it all costs. So if you decide not to return to work, then depending on the sort of maternity pay you've had, the rules will be different. So statutory maternity pay, so remember that's what most people get, and as a minimum is what your employer has to pay. You don't have to repay that. So they've already claimed it off the government. There is no need for you to repay that money. Contractual maternity pay, on the other hand, is obviously set out in your terms and conditions, and it's only if it specifically says that you would have to repay it if you don't go back to work that they can recover it from you. So you might have signed a recovery agreement or been part of your sort of maternity pay letter where it's spelling out what you'll get and how many weeks, etc. So yeah, you can only be forced to repay it if they gave you notice that was going to be the situation if you didn't return. So contractual maternity pay, like I said, it's over and above what statutory maternity pay is. So if it's an extra £5,000, for example, you'd only ever have to pay the extra amount on top of what you would have got had it only been the statutory amount. So this is always a useful slide I cover in lots of my videos. So maternity pay, we tend to talk about it as in the entire period we're away from work when we've had a baby, but we know that maternity pay only actually covers potentially 39 weeks. So 6 weeks of nearly full pay on statutory maternity pay, 33 weeks at £151. So if you're only getting statutory maternity pay, remember that depending on how much your normal income is, you're looking at potentially sort of, somewhere between £5,000 and maybe £10,000, depending on what your regular income is for those 6 weeks. So some ways to get some extra money while you're on maternity. So before maternity pay starts, remember to take any holidays you've got left. Great way to finish work early without that clock ticking on maternity pay and maternity leave, because as soon as they start, the sooner they're going to finish. So you need to delay that as long as you possibly can. Remember, it has to start though on your due date. So maternity pay, as I say, has to start from your due date, which is when maternity leave starts. If the baby comes early, obviously it starts earlier, but you're not going to know that it's going to come early. If it's late, it has to have started on that on the due date. While you're on maternity leave, so you're entitled to some keeping in touch days. So that's 10 paid days where you can go in, go to a team meeting, do some training, etc. Now you don't have to go for the whole day. Even going in for an hour, they have to pay you you have to be paid for the whole day, whether you go in for the whole day or not. Quite a useful reminder. But just remember that you both have to agree. So you can't force them to let you go in, and they can't force you to come in. But really useful to kind of top up that bank account as it starts to dip away after maternity pay stops. And then finally, once the maternity leave has officially finished, so your 52 weeks are up, remember you've got your paid holidays that you've missed out on that you can take before you go back to work. Now, a useful reminder is obviously that time that's paid, very, very useful for filling up that bank account before you go back to work, because there's a good chance you're going to have to pay your first month of childcare in advance. So if you've been on maternity for the best part of a year with very little income, that can be quite tricky. So that sort of unpaid leave before you go back to work is very useful to pay that bill. So how do I make sure everything is correct about maternity pay? I cover this in every video because it's so important. Make sure as soon as you sort of find out you're expecting or perhaps planning, you make some discreet inquiries around your HR policies, your employment contract, your terms and conditions. Maybe ask some people at work as to what happened when they went on maternity. If you think that you won't qualify for maternity pay, so you might have recently joined the company, or you don't meet some of the other qualifying criteria, then start to inquire with the Department of Work and Pensions around maternity allowance. It's never too early to make a plan. You're better off being informed sooner rather than later, so that you can get your money sorted, ready for maternity leave. Also, really important that you keep everything in writing when you are corresponding with your employer. Make sure you don't just give it to your manager and walk away. Copy to HR, payroll, person who owns the company if it's really small, the person who hired you if it's really small. Make sure you get some people in authority to have that information and acknowledge that they've received it. There's nothing worse than your maternity pay being messed up. And then you could be in a position where you might have to repay some. I found myself in that position because I didn't check that sort of acknowledgement letter had come back, that everything was in order before maternity started. And so the last thing you need is trouble with your pay while you're off. So quite a useful checklist. So like I said earlier, it's not just maternity pay that you get while you're off. So remember, when you're doing your budget, think about annual leave and bank holidays before and after maternity leave. Put those into your budget. How much money will you get from those? You've obviously got your maternity pay, so your statutory or your additional contractual maternity pay, how much is that going to bring in? You might have some other income from work, so you might be due a bonus or something partway through the year. You've got the entitlement to up to 10 keeping in touch days while maternity leave is still going. And like I said, they have to be on full pay. You should be at least getting minimum wage for that time. Always agree with your work that you'll be paid and how much it'll be paid, obviously before you agree to go in. Benefits. Now, I know lots of people will say, we earn too much, won't be entitled to anything. But if you don't check, you won't know. So it doesn't cost you anything to check. And even if you're only entitled to the child tax benefit, it pays for your nappies or some clothes every few months, sort of when they have a growth spurt. And then finally, if you find yourself in a position where you're sort of being told that you don't qualify for maternity pay, check out maternity allowance. It's the other alternative. And it's very similar to statutory maternity pay in terms of the amount. So don't feel like you've missed out if you don't qualify for statutory maternity pay, because there is an alternative that's very similar in terms of amount for you. So I hope that's been useful. I've gone one slide too far. Hope that's been useful. So that's just one of the many tips that I cover in my book, which helps you financially plan and prepare for maternity leave. So available in 2 formats from Amazon, so Kindle and paperback. So I'll put a link in the comments so that you can order your copy. Now, once you've got your copy, come back to my website to download your bonus content. So there's 2 things on there that are, I think, are really cool and really good value that go with the book. So in every chapter of the book, at the end, it'll give you a list of jobs to do. So, for example, without dropping everything and making a hideous noise, at the end of chapter 2, so chapter 2 is how long should I take for maternity leave? It's got loads of information for you. And then at the end, it's got a list of things to do. So it will tell you, check your employer's maternity leave policy. What are the rules around the length of maternity leave? What is the process if you want to change your mind? Go and check your annual leave and public holiday entitlements. What leave will you build up while you're on maternity leave? And then check what the return to work rules are with your employer. How can you strategically use other leave like kit days, annual leave, etc. to return part-time? What will you get paid for those kit days? So you get a lovely list of things to do at the end of each chapter in the grey box. And then you pop on over to your planner. And I'll just find the corresponding one. So in the planner, we've got a corresponding chapter. How long should I take for maternity leave? And then if I go to an example here, there's loads of activities in this chapter that'll help you figure out how long you should have for maternity. So for example, what do you need to do to make your dream maternity leave happen? So what can I focus on? What am I in control of? What can I do? There's no point saying I want to backpack around the world while I'm on maternity, because it's probably not going to happen. So it's all about being realistic. So realistically, what's my dream maternity leave? I want to be able to go to swimming maybe once a week, some classes, go for walks, meet some friends. We want to be able to go on a holiday. And what have you got to do to make all of that stuff happen? Trying to really focus on, what do you want to do? Do you want to have 6 months off? Do you want to have 12 months off? Do you want to have 3 months off? What do you want to get out of maternity leave? Because for everybody, it's going to be different. So that chapter in the planner goes with the chapter in the book. Between the 2 of them, very much will help you get to an answer that works for you. Now, also in there is the budget and savings calculator. So I'll do a completely separate video on this, but it's just basically takes the hard work out of the maths for you. So you put all your information in, and it calculates what your budget will be. So fairly simple. And importantly, it will start to flag to you when you might run out of money. That's just a list of the chapters in the planner. Obviously has the corresponding ones in the book as well. Loads of stuff, all the checklists or checklist shopping lists, things to do, places to make sort of journally type notes, things to go and find out, loads of stuff to get your brain thinking, I feel organised. I don't have to worry. It takes you through step by step, breaking it down. Do one little thing each day to help you get your stuff sorted out. I hope that's been helpful. So thank you for listening. Come back every day. There'll be a new video uploaded sort of in theory every day, maybe every second day, depending on what other commitments I've got going on. In the meantime, you can have a nose around my website, The Mum's Guide to Money. Find me in all the normal social media places. But importantly, pop over to Amazon and look for my book and download your copy. If you get a Kindle version, you can have it straight away. You don't even have to wait for them to deliver it. I hope that's been useful. Come back for more top tips. And we're very fast approaching sort of the halfway mark of our 30 days of tips. And feel free to leave in the comments anything else you want me to cover. So thank you, and see you on the next video.